Hey there, welcome back to After the Ashes, the beautiful Altadena's opinionated but well-informed podcast on disaster recovery through a
I knew
public
it.
policy
You
lens.
choked.
This is your co-host Steve, and I'm with Shawna,
Shawna
and we're
Dawson.
recording.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, I knew you couldn't keep it quiet. And we're recording this episode on the 7th of May, and it is episode 16, season 2. I got that part right.
Yeah, it is episode 16 of season 2. Um, yeah, here we are. Welcome back. So it's been what has it been? About 2 weeks since we recorded last.
Yeah.
And we did not think we would manage to record this week because it's been a busy week for both of us, but we're jamming this in this morning between some appointments and other things. With me on like 4 hours of sleep.
Well, your celebrity requires us to,
Oh, fuck off, Steve. Oh, Steve. I was out too late multiple nights this week, which is not my usual MO. And I have to be reminded that, I am of a certain age and if I FA, I FO. I have to go to bed at a good reasonable time. Otherwise I wake up like, oh, I was awake at 5 o'clock. Like, I was texting Steve, like, Steve, I don't know if I feel well. This might be a problem today.
I was like, good, I get to get my run in.
I know. Well, you can get your run in after this. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna start with a media roundup, but our media roundup will be a little lighter because a lot of the stories we're gonna talk about today are directly connected to topics that we want to cover as well. Um,
Yeah, but you know what'll
I think
happen
that
is we'll start on it and then we'll just go down that and just address it in the meeting roundup what we
yeah,
were going to say
I
in the
know,
topic.
I know. So, I actually want to start this off with a piece that you wrote recently. What was it? I
Oh,
think was it last week? It was your the SRPCRD
oh, the
Frankenstein
Frankenstein.
is
Yeah.
alive. Frankenstein is
It's
alive.
alive. It's alive.
It's alive. So Steve doesn't usually go so hard on Pete folks. That's my job.
well, well,
Steve is the good cop. I'm the bad cop. Um, I'm authoritative mommy. Steve is, the yes daddy. Oh, that sounded terrible. I didn't mean that to sound so rude.
22
But
years
you
of
get my
marriage,
gist.
Shauna.
I
Yeah.
know you get my gist.
You
But
pick your fights. You pick your
I
fights.
agreed. I've got 2 marriages under my belt, so I will not
And that
cast any
explains a lot.
stones. Hey, they were long. The first was
Hey,
10, the second was 20.
hey, my dad was married 4 or 5 times, so I'm familiar with the dynamic.
Oh my gosh. You wrote a piece. So anyhow, you were a little bit more direct than you usually are in calling out some of the systems that unfortunately continue to fail us, the county. Anyhow, the more than beyond far beyond the county and its machinations. But I think it was
It
a
was
great
time
piece.
because we collected the receipts over the year, and now all of a
Yep.
sudden the things that we predicted were going to happen are in fact happening. And
Yep.
the thing is that's nice about a piece like that is you can go back and you can reference as we went along the process what we said was going to happen, and effectively it doesn't happen exactly like you predict, but the end result is the same.
Yeah.
And that's
And
that we
that
don't
was
have
it.
any leverage. Yep.
I know exactly. It was
We
when I
traded it away
shared.
as yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
we did. When I was just going to say that when I shared that, that's what I said. I said I hate to say we told you so, but we told you so. I mean, nobody wants to say that. I would love. I say all the time, man. I would love to be wrong. Make me wrong. Give me nothing to talk about. I would love this. I would love nothing more than this. I'll get back in my garden. Like I have other shit to do. But this it's maddening that everything that we have been talking about for the many months we've been doing this since last year, but also that you have been talking about even before this podcast came to be, and that I was talking about in the rooms that I was in with multiple, organizations that are kind of leading the charge on this recovery, and all of the other various players that you and I both collectively and independently have had so many of these conversations with so many people. No one wanted to listen. that's kind of going to be the theme of the theme, I think, of this entire episode is going to be the fact that on every front, it's like a lot of our other quote unquote leaders and, orgs are like, oh shit. I mean, I have people coming to me like, Shawna, what are we going to do about this? Welcome to the party. I've literally
Too
been
late.
talking about this shit for a
Day
year.
late, dollar short.
And
Yep. I mean,
yeah. And
we
like,
were
I
we
don't
were
know
sounding
how
the
we fix it.
alarm. We were sounding the alarm when it was time to do something, and unfortunately now it's
Very
gotten to the
limited.
point. Well, there are options like, like I told you the story about the county. The county's now starting
Yeah.
to look to go to banks and private funders to address some of the funding gaps for people who have, concerns about being able to make the difference between the shortfall in insurance and the rebuild costs. I mean,
Yep.
we've heard all along that, oh no, no, everything's going to be fine. The federal government's going to come in and flood the market. Now it's okay, well, we're going to prop it up and then the federal government's going to take us out. It really
Yeah.
is that at least gives everybody the political win in that they don't have to admit CDBG was wrong, but at the same time,
But
they get the opportunity to do what they should have been
something
doing
different.
16 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. For an out. There's an out. That's kind of the point. There is an out. There is
Well,
a path.
and so the question becomes some of these broader questions like we've traded away the CRD, which because our supervisor wanted it so badly, it left us an opportunity because all we wanted was that protest feature in there. And that would allow the
Yeah.
community a say to go, hey, we don't like what you're doing, or you're going to give us what we want. And then we can give you the tax increment financing that the county so desperately needed.
Yep.
We traded
I
that
mean,
all
that
away.
was,
And all summer we talked to how many different groups, Sean? I mean, like
I
how
know.
many different community leaders? Either they looked at us like they had deer in the headlights, or they've said we've got assurances from Sasha and from Catherine that everything's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. And now
And
it's not
now,
fine.
and now
It's not
look at what's
fine.
happening. And now Altadena Heritage, wrote that piece. Oh my gosh, they're going to build storage facilities on Woodbury. Well,
Yep. We're
guys,
going to talk
you
about
have no
that.
leverage.
Yep.
Or what about, the other one that you were talking about yesterday? I mean,
We're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna get into all of that.
I know,
Um,
I know, I know.
yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot.
It's not. It's
No, it
predictable.
is at this point. It is at this point as it is a lot for all these folks to try and come to terms with the fact that they were lied to,
We'll go
or
back to that piece
misled
we
or
wrote.
misguided, and then trying to understand why, like by whom and why. As we always
Well,
say,
you
like you got
got
to follow the
because
money,
it was
follow the power.
$10 billion. It was ten
Yep.
billion dollars, and it was about control. And if you can seize
Yep.
the control mechanisms at the time, you got to control the rebuild. And if there were things that were coming into play, why else did they create a CRD separate from an EIFD? The
Mm-hmm.
EIFD, which is the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, could have been spun up back in January. It was on the
Yep.
books. But they had to create a climate resilience district because it had to have the token dynamic of, oh, well, this is climate related, number one, which it's really about infrastructure. And number two, uh, we're removing the protest feature because an EIFD requires community buy-in. That's it. It's just like with the assessor and the property tax stuff that we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
ad nauseum that nobody seems to want to address is why if the assessor can go ahead and give everybody like for like with property tax at the same rate, why have they tried to pass a bill? Now they're on their third round of this. Nobody asks the questions because nobody wants to know the answers, and everybody gets told, "Oh, everything's going to be fine," until it's not. And then
Until it's
for
not fine.
all those people who go ahead, and they have a property tax basis at $150,000, they beg, borrow, steal, get everything they can do to get their house rebuilt, and they turn around and get $1 million property tax basis. They're like, I came all the way through and got to the other end of the tunnel under the assumption that things were going to be fine, and now all of a sudden I got an extra $1,500 to $2,000 a month on top of everything I can't afford anyway. Like, there's a point where the straw is going to break the camel's back,
Yeah. And we're
and
there and it's
and we've
happening
been
and
lied
it's,
to, and
yeah.
we've been lied
And
to.
it
But
the
Krang's
veil
running
is being
again.
lifted. The veil's being lifted and people are
Well,
now,
well,
both
maybe
both
some
in the
people are starting
community.
to realize it.
Well,
but
yeah,
they're
and then in the
still
community as well. It's not just at these other levels. It's also at the bottom, at the ground level, on the ground with the community, where people are trying to realize, like, wait, what's happening, and why aren't these orgs doing anything? Why isn't town council doing anything? Why isn't this happening? And they're really, the blinders are kind of coming off, that,
well, it's
that
16 months later.
well, it's not only that these are advisory mechanisms. None of them have any real voice, leadership, or power. It is ultimately all, everything is the count. It's the truth. You and I know it. Everything is at the county's
That's actually not
discretion. They
true.
give us
That's
the
actually
illusion.
that's actually not true. That's actually not true. If the town
How do you
council
disagree?
really, so here's the thing. The town council was stood up by the county at the outset of this to parrot what, Victoria Knapp was able to parrot everything that the county wanted done while she ran it. And so the town council did, it was stood up as that indicative representation of our county, of our town,
Yes,
just like the
exactly.
Palisades has it.
We've talked
Palisades
about
has
this,
the
to
same
say
problem.
it was to
Okay.
rubber stamp. It was to rubber stamp. It was to say,
Well,
hey,
it
we have
was it was
community
to give the
buy-in.
impromptu of the idea that the town's elected representatives are supporting what the county's saying. So
Right.
when the federal government comes in and federal government says, well, does the town care? The county goes, well, yeah, as much as the town cares or the county cares, and yes, we technically are the counterparty for all this because the town is unincorporated. Nevertheless, the representation of the town meets that standard. It's something that has to be part of the CDBG money that comes in, is that there has to be community buy-in, and it doesn't just get dictated from atop by the seat by the council or the county supervisors. So what the town council, by doing that, by supporting all the county's decisions, has given that sense of, well, everybody's in alignment. But if the town council were to say, you know what, we as the elected representation of the town are not in alignment with what the county's saying, and in fact we believe that this is to our detriment, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they'll ever do this. But if they were to do that, if it got so bad that the federal government would say, whoa, 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 hold on a second here.
Yeah.
I'm not
But
sure
I think
we
you made the
can,
point right there. It's the federal government that would take note of
but
that,
at the
not the
end of the
county.
day, the county doesn't matter. I've had conversations with people back to the EDA stuff where the only reason why the county's even sitting there is because the state is such a horrible counterparty to the federal government that the county looks good by comparison. But as you and I,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about time and time again on this podcast, the county has its own failures and it's no panacea by any stretch of the imagination. So we're at a point where people are saying, well, what's the leverage point? What can we do to affect change? What can we do to get the county to give us what we want? And the answer is for our elected representation, whether advisory or not, to say we aren't in alignment with where the county's going. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters to the county, besides the property tax, parcel tax going up, is that federal money. And if the feds come in and say, wait a minute, you guys are not in alignment, I mean, that throws the whole thing into disarray.
Yep.
So there's your little
But
nugget for the morning.
however, no, you know how I feel about this and have felt for a long time. And the reason I don't sit on that council, because I don't know how anyone can sleep at night doing that job, to be honest, or being in that role, because you do have, I think to your point, it is an opportunity, even if you don't have the ability to change everything or to do all the things, okay, great. It is an opportunity, and not only an opportunity, an imperative to do what you are there to do and to speak up for your neighbors in your community. And that too often just does not happen, because again, it's like, I think, people, we've talked about this before, it's like the county does a really effective job of gaslighting and bullshitting people who are on the council, and so that they actually believe the BS that they're being told, while simultaneously pandering to them and their egos and trotting them around town and giving them awards and telling them how great they are, and now they have little jackets with little emblems and they feel very special, but without actually understanding the issues. They don't actually understand what's going on to do anything about it, let alone to speak up.
Well,
Or worse,
it's
we've had people, hold on a second, we've had people who've cycled out of the town council, and we'll just leave it at that, who have straight up told people repeatedly, multiple people on camera, on video, on hot mics, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. Those people are there for themselves and not for the town. And again, before the fire didn't matter. Like, let people have their petty fiefdoms and be, a big fish or a mid fish in a very tiny pond. Have fun. But now, there is consequence, and this is
The
it. We're paying the
decisions,
price
yeah,
now.
the decisions they made have real consequences. And
Correct.
while they may not have even understood what was going on, and I'll give our town council leadership, while the fire was going on, it was a heady time, and there were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
decisions that were being made. And what are you going to do? You're going to listen to some voices from the outside that may or may not know what they're talking about. You're going to listen to the supervisor and the advisors coming from the state and the elected representatives and those who are getting awards of being, the person of the year. Like that, I get it. I get that. However, when you're in an elected position and you want the accolades, you also have to look at what the consequences of those decisions are, and you have to listen to
Yeah.
all voices. And you can't just
Yep.
minimize those voices that don't necessarily align with where
A
you want to
line.
be.
Right.
And because what happens is the decisions or non-decisions, because not making a decision is still a decision that you made during that time in those positions have consequences. And today we're seeing those consequences and we're seeing the results of those decisions. And those decisions are a myriad, right? Like the land use decisions that are starting here are test cases to see how
Yeah, they
far
are.
the
They
community
can
is going to
push.
push back
Yep.
and to test the limits of how far the stranglehold on the different committees and the different organizations that are the voice of the community. I mean, it's not just the town council. It's
No, it's
a
not.
lot of it's all the leadership positions that are very effectively been, I don't say, but the right people have been put in place in power to ensure that all these interlocking organizations all come together and ensure that the narrative that the county wants to see implemented gets done because there's billions and billions of dollars at stake here, and there's more than a few careers that are going to be made and lost as a result of this.
Yep. That is the truth. And also
And
a
that
whole
is the
town at stake.
Frankenstein. And that's
And
the
exactly.
the town is a pawn in the bigger game.
Yeah. No, I know. In a game that, again, most people playing don't even understand the rules of.
They didn't,
Um,
and they were put in those.
no.
It's and that was one of my favorite pieces to write because I got that phone call, not the piece, the Frankenstein piece, but the one that goes back to this fall of last year. And it's that sinking feeling, right? Like that moment where you've been put into this position and you've been useful enough to be able to allow yourself to be a part of this and allow the people around you, the politicals, to get what they want. And I mean, I think, on a very extreme case, we saw that with Eric Swalwell. But even here, people who are local who, they were propped up, they were given cell phone numbers, hey, anything you need, call me, I'll be there for you, I got your back. And then when they got what they wanted, those phone calls don't get returned. And when things start happening and decisions are being made, and you pick up that phone and say, wait a minute, I don't want, we're going to ruin the heritage of this area. Why are we putting a storage facility on Woodbury? And people are like, I can't take your call right now, or let me look into it. Instead of, I'll get you right back to you. Yeah, anything you need, I got you. Now you're not needed anymore. And we always said it was going to be in the nonprofit sector, but it's become more than that. And now it's that realization where you were played. And
Yeah. Everybody was played.
it,
They were all
well,
played.
well, yeah. And
Except for
now
those
it's
pulling the
the
strings, they were all
naysayers.
played.
Well, and the naysayers that saw it and said, look, this
Yeah.
is the game that's being played here. And, some of us have been through this before. Some of us have seen how politics works at the big scale. And, let's be honest too, like this is not, power politics Washington style. This is power politics, Han Hall of Administration style. But you just know power politics is the same. It's just the degree of which it is changes just depending on the setting of it.
Yep.
So it was nice to write it because we did have the receipts. The sad part is we had to write it because we did have the receipts.
I know. Well, the sad part is that we're here at all when we should,
Well,
it could have been
now you
avoided.
have. So one of the things that they always tell me in Washington is it's easier to fix the problem before you have to unknot it because once you start unknotting things, things get messy.
Hmm.
We're in a position now where we have to start unknotting, and it's now we have to take bigger swings because we're behind the eight ball. If
Yep.
we want to have that position in California or in Los Angeles or in Altadena, we're going to have to, our town council is going to have to exert itself, and it's going to have to do it in a way that plays power politics with the feds and bypasses the county and bypasses the city or the state. And that's going to have to be, they're going to have to say, look, we're not on board with what's happening here. And, we want to have more control. And I think if we do that, there are people that have relationships in Washington that are in our community that can open those doors. And it's not those that sit in the Oval Office for photo ops with the president, because that's a whole different story because of who was also in that Oval Office when those meetings were happening. And I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people understood that piece of it. That was a very clear message to those of us who are in the game. So, anyway, sorry, Shawna.
No,
I
I
know you
love
want
the
to do the
inside
media roundup.
baseball. I love it. I love the inside baseball. I know all the listeners do too. How this works and kind of understanding the behind the scenes is, I think, critical at this point. Like we have to have a full awareness of what's happening if there's any hope of getting out of the mess. So
But we also
on
have
the
to be
media,
paying attention to what's happening up in Sacramento, because I know a lot of people are wondering why I'm writing so much about this gubernatorial, but that's going to affect our rebuild too. Our governor killed our solutions, and our governor can
yep,
make it too. So, like, I think we have to be mindful of what's happening up there as well.
I agree. I agree, which is what, again, to your point, why not just in your Substack, but here, while we've talked quite a bit about the players, and we won't do it today, but we will come back in another episode as things heat up, as we're heading into the primary. We've got our ballots. My ballot's here. You got your ballot. It's time. So yeah, there'd be a lot more
I've had
conversation. I am
so
gonna
many people ask me about that one. They're like, I have no idea who to vote for.
who to vote for. I know it's a mess
Who do I
because
hold my
nobody's
nose
great.
for?
Anyhow,
No.
I don't want us to go down the rabbit hole of that because it's not our topic today. But also, like, I'm with you. I'm one of those people because I'm like, I don't like it that these people all suck. I don't like any of them. They're all
My dad's
problematic,
line. My dad's
and
line.
this
I'll
is the
just leave it at
best.
this: the cream of the crap. That's what he used to call it.
It is the cream of the crop. I'm like, how is this the best that we have to offer? Like,
It's
what is
not.
this?
It's just that's who we got stuck with. So
Yeah. Oh man. So the other big news, okay, the other big news, aside from all the of everything imploding and being the same, is the State Farm news. Okay. So, and I just said, wow, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for this one and what happened
can I
here.
roll my eyes at this
The
one? Okay.
we can roll your eyes all you like. California Department of Insurance and Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara are now saying post their investigation, they did their investigation, released their findings, that State Farm may temporarily lose its California license after findings tied to its handling of the 2025 claims. So for
You mean it
those who are
can't
not
write any
familiar,
more policies?
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to get into this because someone in my group, I loved it. She was like, "Oh, they said the DOI is threatening them with a good time." Uh,
They get a speeding ticket and they
so
don't have to write more policies. Oh,
I know.
oops.
So I just said, like, why now? Who got? Is this just? I mean, it's clearly just more optics and someone being pressured into doing something. But this is absolutely more about optic than outcome, because if we're being honest, how does this help anyone? It doesn't. Like, I'm a State Farm, you know, uh, person, right? State Farm customer with a claim that is still ongoing. I'm on Adjuster 13. I've never got my, you know, individual one person to have my point of contact that you're supposed to. None of that has happened for me. Like, anyhow, and like so many people, I'm just still fighting to get every dollar out of this flipping policy. And someone as I was alluding to, someone in the community said suspending their certificate, like the DOI wants to threaten them with a good time. Because this just gives insurance, as we've discussed in the past, another reason to stop writing policies, to pull out of this market entirely, which is what a lot of them have wanted to do. And then the penalties, let me start on the penalties. The penalties that are being discussed are, millions, which is nothing. I mean, it's couch change for a billion, yeah, $2 million, couch change for a
It's
multi-billion
millions,
dollar
Shauna.
mega
Shauna.
corporation.
Anything over $1 million is millions. Come on.
Okay,
Look,
barely.
this is
But
so,
anyhow,
but
the point is
but
it's a joke. It's nothing. And don't get me started on the fact that those fines, it's not like those fines come to the people. It goes to the state. So like make it make sense. This does literally nothing for anyone other than to absolve Lara and the DOI along with State Farm going, well, they were naughty and now we slapped them on the wrist and we did our job and now it's over and let's move on. And meanwhile, everyone's still in the same boat. So
So
I want
last
to,
night, though, there was a lot on the debate about this because there was talk about Javier Becerra saying how he wants to freeze or cap rates, and they started talking about this on Tuesday night, and everybody on the stage said basically, A, or they did this last week. They said, A, it's illegal, and even to the extent that you can do it, you're just going to collapse the market. The reality is that California's market is collapsing. Whether State Farm stops writing policies or not, who cares? We need to reimagine because the bigger issue here that nobody's talking about, except for those that know that I read my Substack, is the fact the larger insurance companies are pawning off or shifting the higher risk people into CalFair. So the state's taking on the risk and they're continuing to write policies, but they're moving away from wildfire risk so that they're not stuck with that anymore. And it's all on the state now. And that's what CalFair is essentially. And,
yep,
we're getting to the point where the system is breaking. And whether it's whatever that we're going to do with this is, I still believe we have to look at CalFair and we have to look at, we don't really know what the profitabilities organizations are or not. Nobody knows. It's just this, we're just going to throw regulations out. And this has been a problem that they keep talking about. And it's just a lot of he said, she said. And until we have a public option that does this itself to determine whether or not these really are profitable lines of business or not, and this is really a profitable play, this is a rate that makes sense for the market that we're in, and are we actually doing this market properly? All of this stuff is conjecture.
mm,
And what they did with State Farm with the optics, as you said, it's a bunch of BS.
yep,
And I think that the reality is that this is a fundamental problem to California, but it's indicative of the broader problems that we've been seeing. And again, those that read my Substack know I've been writing a lot about these things because we have to address these problems. And
yeah,
sitting there and getting cheap political points, while it makes us feel good, doesn't actually solve the problem. Because as we're rebuilding, people are going to need insurance. Because especially the people who can't afford to rebuild or are having to take on extra debt, they're going to have insurance to finish the projects.
yep.
And yet nobody's addressing this problem.
No, they're not. I mean, and like you said, we've talked about this quite a bit, and we've been talking about this in our groups, in our primary BA group quite a bit. In fact, I love the BA people in the group, and I'm so lucky that I spend enough time in Altadena now that I get to see people in the wild all the time, and I have the most amazing conversations. But I have to share like some of the comments that came from our community, the reactions to this news, and it was like, I can't think of another industry where you pay for an advocate and they become your adversary when you need them most. Like, can you imagine hiring a lawyer when it comes time to go to court? They've joined the other guy. I mean, it is like that. Penalties to whom? So the state needs more money. The state gets to benefit. Okay, this just gives them an exit. Others will follow. So now what? We lose our policies and start over. Other people were like, what about the California Fair Plan? Can we talk about that? That CFP is virtually insolvent and no one is having claims paid out through CFP. And then, of course, let's not pretend that this is isolated. We're seeing the same patterns across multiple carriers. You've got, Mercury, Allstate, Farmers. There are people in the same circumstances that we are with State Farm, with all of these carriers, all getting away with the same thing. And they're not even getting the wrist slap. It's embarrassing. So, I mean, this is not a win. And I think, we cannot allow it to be framed as a win because it's not a win.
Well, it already
But
has been,
as
and
I,
it will be.
and it's absurd that it is because it's not. And that is, it's just more gaslighting. It's more just, hey, telling everybody like,
But
oh,
do you
everything's
realize
great,
the political work it took to even get to this? Excuse me. It
which
means
is
it's
embarrassing.
means it's
Bless you,
true.
Steve.
But to get to this outcome, which is an embarrassment, like that, the amount of work that it took to get there from the electeds and the advocates in the community, et cetera, it is a win from that perspective that they actually got something done. But it's not a win because it's not actually doing anything for
It's
us.
nothing. It's
And
more,
that's the
it's
sad
just,
part.
It's more performative policy dressed up for press ops while the survivors keep, bearing the brunt and doing the real work of recovery on their own. That's what it is.
Well, it's very similar to everything you're seeing in the debates right now, in that there's a lot of talk about performance, but there's no real substance behind how we're going to
Yeah,
solve the fundamental problem.
exactly. I
And
mean, I think
it's really bad.
I'm not gonna drag us into the mayoral race, for LA, because that's definitely not a topic we're covering today. But I will just say to that point, because you and I have been talking quite a bit about this offline. Is Spencer Pratt, right? And that, like, at the debate last night, like, listen, Pratt's MAGA light. You can get into what a trash person he is via his reality show history. I mean, I always like to hold room for people to change, and I do believe to some degree this guy has definitely changed. I don't think he's still the same person who would sell nudes of one of the Olsen sisters, or get sucked into the Mayan end of civilization thing and blow $1 million on crystals. I would love to know if that story is real, because I'm just so fucking amused by it. But anyhow, the point is that if you listen to that debate last night, while this guy may be arguably in some circles like a lunatic and fringe and this and that, and he's MAGA and he's all this stuff, he's the only one who actually sounds like he has a fucking clue, even though he may have no clue at all about policy and has no business in the role. The fact that he's the only one who sounds like he has a clue is a disturbing reality. Like, that's where we're at. And this is how Trump, like you and I have talked about this. This is how Trump happened. And everyone's like, he'll never win. He'll never win. He'll never win. Ah,
Authenticity matters. I mean, we're here,
yes, it
but
does.
look, whether it's on the far left or far right, you're seeing it. I mean, authenticity is the key, because we as voters and we as citizens are tired of the same old warmed over points and the same old warmed over bullshit. And when you
Yep.
get there and they get into office, they just sell themselves out for whatever it is. And, at this point, I think everybody's just, they just want something. Look at what's happening in Maine with Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner, by all that's holy, shouldn't even be in that senatorial race. Yet the guy beat back Janet Mills because the attraction people have with him is that he's authentic. Yeah, he's a
Mm-hmm.
fuck up. Yeah, he's had problems. Yes, he has a Nazi
He's
tattoo, and
relatable.
but it's human. And I think that that's what people are saying is, look, stop giving us robots. Give us something real.
Yep.
And as I've said to people, again, back to the gubernatorial race or the mayoral race, the thing we're seeing in California that's going to play out on the national stage, I've always said 2026 here in California is the prelude, is either, and this is where I think Mahan missed, is either you're going to attack the machine or you're going to be part of the machine. And you have to
Yep.
choose which one it is. You
Which it
cannot be,
is.
and when you
You're
attack
in
it,
or
you have
you're
to
out.
choose, and you have to choose what it is that you're going to attack. Like you and I have not been brought in by the machine, and I don't think we'll ever be brought in by the machine because we've chosen to attack. But if you choose to attack, you also have to choose in a way that is, I've tried to make it so that centrist lane exists, that we're not so far out of whack that, people go, wait, you're Spencer Pratt, or I know I get called MAGA, but I'm not. It's like,
That's laughable to me, because you're so not. You couldn't be further from that.
well,
But
it's
continue.
funny. I was talking with a guy who's in the union, and we were talking about, he was involved with labor and politics, and I told him my theory on the insurance and how I think, especially at the state level with health insurance, that we need to have a public option. He goes, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No." I said, I there, with the utilities, I'm the one who said get rid of the private utilities. It's a joke that we're using public
Yep.
risk for private benefit. Like I'm not, but to the extent that this has to be, the authenticity is critical, and you have to be authentic in who you are and what you are. You can't try to be, an establishment person attacking things, because it doesn't work. And I think that that's where people, or you can't be like the New York Post put, or the California Post put it well today about Mahan, is that he triangulates instead of just going at where he needs to get to. And that is why he is
Mm-hmm.
failing, which is,
Yes.
again,
Yeah.
readers of my stuff
Well,
know I've been
he
saying this
choked.
all along. Oh,
And,
God. I mean,
yeah,
God, I
he
would have loved
choked.
that. I would have loved the lane he had wide open to him. I mean, when Lorena Gonzalez went after him, he was wide open to attack the machine, and he missed. It's
And he
just
missed it.
unbelievable. But anyway,
Well, I mean, like
that's
Nitya Raman last night, who, we were talking about, again, I don't want to get too far, but like we talked about that. Like, She actually is really smart, but oh my gosh, she bombed spectacularly,
Yeah,
which is
I heard it was
frustrating to
horrid.
watch. It was bad.
But
I watched
but
parts of it
part
and I
of
was like, oh gosh, it's
but part of the problem
cringeworthy.
is that most people in California politics, especially on the Democratic side, whether the candidate or the people behind them, remember, it's a whole machine behind them. I mean, you have like campaign consultants, you got campaign people, et cetera. The campaign people want to continue to work in California politics. You can't go attack the machine and the establishment and then expect to get jobs afterward. I mean, they have long memories. So
Yep.
it may not even be the Mayhans of the world that, he may have felt like, yeah, I'll go, but his advisor's like, you can't, because if you do, then I won't get a job. And it's like, well, that's why Steyer's refreshing, because Steyer can do that because he's using Mandami's people who are not California and he
Right.
doesn't care.
Yeah. The only
Sorry.
challenge again with him that you and I have discussed is that, no one has any taste for a billionaire at this point. Just none.
Well, he's too extreme anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
he's too much. And
Fair enough.
guy's Palpatine. He looks like the Emperor from Star Wars.
It's Palpatine. It took me a minute. I thought you said he's palpitating.
No, he's Palpatine
Maybe
from
that
Star
too, but
Wars.
no, yes, he's Emperor Palpatine. I got it. I got it. I'm a little bit of a nerd. Okay, that's hilarious to me. Um,
Can't you picture him
so
with the
let's.
like lightning coming out of his hands? Ah!
I would say now you're taking me into another, it's a little more Marvel universe, but okay.
No, that's Star
Let's.
Wars. Like I just watched Return of the Jedi. I showed my
We're like,
daughter it for the first time. She goes, "I want to watch the last one." I go, "Okay, you're gonna watch Return of the Jedi because that's it."
that is it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit too. There was some other news out of the Palisades that takes us to
Yes, yes,
yeah, but it
yes.
takes us to this, this another topic that we've covered at length and that we talk about a lot, which is
You mean we have receipts again?
oh oh uh which is
What?
the money. Like I said, oh man, I said I wish I had a dollar for every time we've asked, like, where's the money? Everyone said, where's the money? Can we just have a dollar for that? It is this issue of our nonprofit sphere, and how all this money is flowing and where it is and where it's not. So the sad news was that Larry Vane, and Larry's someone who I had a few conversations with at the end of the year and earlier this year, as I was doing some coordination with the Palisades and speaking at their They Let Us Burn rally, because it's while they have different struggles, many of them are parallel to ours. Those conversations are absolutely worth having. But Larry, kind of came out of nowhere after the fire as a community member and started a group called Pally Strong. And, like in our community, there are multiple factions, working through all of these things, and while also collectively working through obviously a lot of trauma and grief. And Larry kind of ended up in this like kind of position of creating comms. He created social media to he effectively started what I started 10 years ago with BA. He started around the fire. And ultimately, and he called it Pally Strong. And then ultimately that, coalesced this group. And then we had other groups who felt that he was too close to and too connected to the people that they were fighting, which is, like for us, the bad is the county. For them, the bad is Mayor Bass.
You mean
Um,
the villain?
yes. So,
I mean,
in
that's
that
how the media
story,
wants a story. You have to have the villain,
correct,
right?
correct. And that's how these things end up being framed. And there was a lot there was not always agreement over there, just as there is not always agreement in our community. But the news this was that on Monday that was that Larry had passed away and that it was suicide, that he had chosen to take his life. And I mean, I was just again, as I said it, I said, well, the fire has taken another one of us, because I think that, as we've discussed also in the past on this show, it is countless the number of deaths that are related to this, not just suicides, not just the people who died those first nights, but like all the people who've died since, from various related things. And we've seen, some of that data come out of Cedars-Sinai with the excess deaths and cardiac events. If you go talk to anybody at Huntington Hospital, they'll tell you that they have seen a huge uptick in these incidences and deaths since the fire. But it was incredibly sad to see that had happened, and that for whatever reason he felt that was his only way out or only choice, and that was the best option. Um, and I think it's worth talking about the fact that, for disaster survivors, the trauma, the grief, the PTSD, a lot of that peaks in year 2. And we are right in the thick of that. And it's a good reminder to everyone to check in on your neighbors, spend a little extra time, stick around and ask one more question. Be especially concerned for the people who insist that everything's fine and they're okay all the time, because they're not. Nobody is. So, it was just a really, really sad to see, regardless of how anybody, felt or agree, whether there was agreement or not, that you don't
Well,
want
I
to see
think
that happen
that's
to
sort of
anyone.
the sentiment. I think that's been the sentiment over there
Yeah.
regarding this
Yeah. You don't want to see this
differences
happen to
aside,
anyone.
your political differences aside, you're still a human. And
Yeah. Oh,
he had
100%.
he had young kids and a family, and he tried to give of himself in a way that he felt was right to get back to his community. And
Yeah.
sometimes you get, well, we don't know the details, so
Well, so there is, what this raised. It raised this other, topic, which is, that was very divisive in the Palisades, which is that, Larry, despite not having a nonprofit, not being a prior community leader, organizer, any of that, received a $500,000 fire aid grant, through, help me out, California Partners.
community partners.
Thank you, Community Partners of California. And there was a lot of criticism. That he kind of put it, I think, to quote him, he said, "To our surprise, we were awarded a $500,000 grant from Fire Aid, but with strict limitations on how the funds could be used. And we were directed to continue our communications work and create a communications hub for the Palisades." So on its face, okay, great. People could be critical. And I think that, unfortunately, the only reason that people are so critical is because, there's a lot of ires to, like, why is this person getting all this money? And is this really where this money should go? And the only reason that people have to have that conversation is because the money is not flowing everywhere else it should. Right. I
Well,
think that if the
look,
money were
I
flowing
think
everywhere else it
I
should, this would not have been a conversation.
well,
But
I don't agree. That world is extremely competitive and petty. I mean, the nonprofit
but
communities
this is not
and the
about the nonprofit
nonprofits, yeah.
communities. This
Well,
is about sentiment. This is about the sentiment amongst the people, just like the sentiment in
well,
our community, where everyone is like,
but
where
I
the
think
fuck
that's
is this fire
fanned
aid
by,
money?
yeah, I think it's fanned by the competitiveness of, yes, you're right. I mean, on a macro level, you're 100% right. That money never got down to the people it was supposed to. I mean,
Yeah,
the allegations came
that's
out
it.
against Fire Aid, or no, after the fires. They remember we wrote about that
Yep.
over. I wrote about that over the summer, last summer, and it was like the Fox News stuff. Spencer Pratt was all into this, and they were exposing all the money. Then they got Latham Watkins to come in, and then there was that whistleblower up trial that showed up for one day and then left, and then everybody was
Yep.
going to Washington, and then the machine decided, oh, no, 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 we got to give it a clean bill of health before we go to Washington. And the preliminary thing from Latham said, as the information was presented to them, everything looked kosher, but we didn't have Annenberg's information, and until you had Annenberg's, considering most of
Yeah.
the money was going through Annenberg, it sort of seemed like, well, you can't just dismiss that. Never got a final audit, or at least it wasn't reported.
Nope.
The data that was compiled at the end of the year showed that there was up to $1 billion sent out, but most of that was through GoFundMe, and the real number was around 160 million. The whole thing's a freaking joke, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
the money should have gone to the people, and it never did. And I think again, tragedy sometimes opens the door to something more. And I think, there's those lines in that piece about how Larry himself sat down with some of the editorial groups, or one of those, Circling
Yeah.
the News, which is one of the most
Yep.
direct in criticism of how fire aid has been, dealt with, and how the fire response has been over there. They were really in on killing off ABC or SB 549 for Ben Allen,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was talk about how he was going to, quote, spill the beans, so to speak, in the next
Right.
couple of weeks,
So, it's like I
blow the
wish
top off
God,
this thing.
I wish Larry was around to tell the full story of what had happened here, because this was reported in the Pali Post, which is a local paper, where they said a few days after his death, Sue Pasco, who's the editor of Circling the News, had reported that Vane met with her on April 16th, and at that time Pasco said that he told her he had not asked for the grant. He said, I didn't ask for one. It wasn't his idea, and they just gave it to him. And according to Pasco, Vane claimed that he, quote unquote, had not been allowed to spend the money because he had to give some back to community partners, and that he would elaborate in writing in a few weeks. And he was gone 11 days later.
I
So,
heard the number is 10%. That
yep.
that's the fee that community partners was charging.
Yeah.
So fifty
Yeah.
thousand dollars out of that money. And I mean, if you translate that for all those fiscal sponsors that are involved,
Yep.
because most of these organizations went through fiscal sponsors in one form or another. I mean, the VIG is 10% on $100 million. That's $10 million that didn't go to fire
Correct.
victims.
Yep.
Instead, it went to these fiscal sponsors that do what? They burdened it and allowed people to bypass the 501c3 requirements. I mean,
Which is,
it,
I don't,
it
on its face, I
and
don't have a problem with that. I think it's a great way to stand up organizations quickly
yeah,
after a
but it's
disaster
been
like this when you need
manipulated.
to.
It's
But
been
correct.
manipulated, like the Wall Street
Correct.
Journal talked about back in December that I wrote about. And I mean, we don't know where, we cannot account for where all this money has gone. And to the extent that the federal government's supposed to come in and flood this space with up to $20 billion, I mean, I think the LA County ask is 8. Figure the city's probably similar. I mean, 16 to 20 billion in money. I mean, 10% of that. So let's just say, wait, first the county and the state or the city will get theirs. And if we can get 10% from the fiscal sponsors, what do the county and the city get? I mean, you can start,
Yep.
that number is going to dwindle down pretty quick. And, but even if you have $20 billion passing through, if fiscal sponsors are going to get their hands on up to 2 billion of that just for administering this stuff, that's, like, again,
It's
I
the
know those
same,
numbers are probably
but
unrealistic,
but
but
it's
this,
even still,
even
it's
if
the
it's
same thing
200
as the
million.
state. Yes, it's the same thing as the state making a small killing, the state and the city and the county, on sales tax on our rebuilds. Like they're going to profiteer like crazy.
Yeah, but that money's going
They
back
already
to us,
are.
Shauna. Come on, they're using that money to help prop us up.
Oh, that's right. Of course, it's trickled down. It's trickled down everything. Trickled down nonprofit logic that, it's insane to me.
I,
We had our
I do think this is a window, and I think that it's incumbent on our media and our electeds. I know the Congress has the his GAC committee up at that's Homeland Security Government something Homeland Security and Government Committee and his GAC at the Senate, and I'm sure oversight. Well, no, oversight is not doing anything because Robert Garcia wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. But there should be people looking at this,
yeah.
and I think it's a question of when are we going to start really addressing some of these broader questions because think about homelessness at 24 billion that we spent in the state, just in the state side of it, not even the federal money. How much of that money has gone through these fiscal sponsors and administrative entities, et cetera? That you know I know when I was bringing up the idea of even just talking about workforce development from the homeless perspective, it was like, oh, you're taking $1 away from building a facility or building an apartment for this person, yet 2.4 billion could have been just siphoned off, and how much could that have built?
Yep.
Like I'm just saying, and again, these numbers are totally. I don't believe that it's 2.4 billion. It could be. Who knows though? Like how much of that money did not get to where it needed to get to? And, we
Yep.
talk about fraud, waste, and abuse, and this is not illegal, but it sure as shit doesn't feel proper.
No, it's not right.
So
When someone donates money to a cause, you want that money to go to the cause. And I think there's some, acceptance that you may lose a little in an admin fee or some other admin cost, but that should be minimal. Not
well, I think
and
normally
not
the
let the
number
money
is
just keeps
three
going
to
and going and going, and then the money never even gets where it's supposed to go.
Well, I think the number is normally 3 to 5%. But here's another question. CPA mentioned to me when they read this stuff. They said, "What if the money never got spent? Does it then go back to who? And then where is it
Right?
allocated to? Is it washed at that point?" In the government, we
Yeah.
call it laundering appropriations. And what happens is, the money goes into, say, Department of Veterans Affairs, right? And then VA says, okay, I need to go buy something. So then the VA will go buy it, and then they'll pay themselves to buy the item. And then that money that they use to pay, like, let's just say it's 5% of the money,
Mm-hmm.
that goes into an account, and that's no longer required to follow the appropriations, where the restrictions on it. And that is called a supply fund. And that can be spent however you choose to. And that's called laundering money. And they talked about this with some of the programs that I've been involved with, where fees are paid to nonprofits outside of the government to administer the program on the government's behalf. And then those monies, which were appropriated, are then spent however you choose. And I'm feeling like the fiscal sponsors feel a shitload like that. Like
Yeah.
they could be laundering those appropriations or those dollars or those restricted funds that would otherwise or should otherwise be going to the process. And then the worst part is they can then take that money and advocate on behalf of whatever they want. In the program I was dealing with the federal government at the time, they could take the money that organizations were regulatorily required to pay to these parent nonprofits. Think about it like a franchisee and a franchisor, and the franchisor could then take that money and lobby on behalf of the organizations to continue to keep the program going. But they also lobbied on behalf of themselves to make sure that they stayed in the position of power to keep getting their money. And I wonder how far this goes. I've seen it and I know it and I could feel it. And it feels like they're the ones spending the money, these fiscal sponsors tied into the philanthropic foundational industrial complex, who are flying back to Washington trying to get the CDBG money instead of focusing on solutions that we brought up here, solutions that have been palatable to the administration from the start. And I'm not saying I'm agreeing with the administration. I'm just saying at the end of the day, we have to do what it takes to get stuff to our
Mm-hmm.
people. And, why have we wasted 16 months sitting there in the Oval Office with Darth Vader to continue our theme of Star Wars today? When Russell Vought, who's the head of the Office of Management and Budget, sitting there with Karen Bass and Catherine Barger and the president, that's not because of a good thing. Russell Vought is the guy who guts every possible thing in the federal government. He led the Doge efforts besides Elon Musk. He's not there because things are good. And
No, he's not.
I just think like we are missing the thread here, and all the things we have wasted time, and we have
Which is what
let
they
this
want.
disaster go. Yeah, and they've
Yep.
consolidated power, and we've been
Yep.
left in the background. And it's the receipts are coming
Fumbling.
due. Back to the Frankenstein thing. I mean, we're seeing now the results of it, and now it's up to us to say, you know what, we have to stand up and stop what is happening.
Yep. I agree with you. I'm going to just touch briefly. Like, we even have this playing out at our little hyper local level, with our town council's fund. The Altadena Town Council administered a GoFundMe fund, and then was doing, a little larger than micro grants, but like $500 to $1,000 grants that it was really hard. Like, even in our group, there was a post with hundreds of comments, and no, only one person in the comments had received this grant. So it was like, who's getting this money? Now, I don't think that the money went anywhere it wasn't supposed to. I don't. I think it did go to community members. I think it went to those most in need, which they were working on. And we're talking like people who are living in their cars and tents. And
Yeah.
that's great, because that's exactly the intention for those funds. But what came up that was problematic was that one of the recipients. So first, to explain, when you received this money, it was all distributed not directly to your bank account like a typical GoFundMe, but it was done through a
Oh,
digital gift card. Okay. And
Hmm.
one of the recipients was really alarmed when they, because all of us are dealing with mega trauma, moving, displacement, grief, all these things, right? Like shit gets lost. Like I was saying, like I got like a, $500 Target gift card at some point, and I have no idea where that thing is. Like I would love to use it. Actually, I don't even know where it is, but because it's just that's how it is right now for survivors, and we're going to be in this state for a long time. And you know, this in the state of California, there's a law that very clearly says that gift cards cannot have an expiration date. They cannot expire in the state. But it turns out there's a loophole for things like this, like where you're doing charitable donations, which is wild. And well, that's a whole other topic we don't have time for today, but
I'd
I
love to
would
know
talk
who
about
carved out that. I'd love to know who
so would
carved that one
I.
out.
Me too. How did that happen? Right. So all of this money is distributed that way. And the expiration date was really short. It's 6 months. So the person who got this money, one of these recipients was like, hey, I'm going to go do this. And was like, wait, I can't get my funds. Like I can't get my $1,000 grant because it's expired. It was like, so
Where
they
did the
went
money
down the
go?
rabbit hole, right? So they went down the rabbit hole of like, where did this money go? And how does this work? And they got to the gift card company that is out of Australia called Prezi. And then the fact that if you did not utilize all of your funds on that digital gift card that came from this charitable, donation, that the funds didn't go back to the fund, they didn't go back into the pool to be redistributed, it went as a fee to, or a enrichment, shall we say, to this company in Australia called Prezi. So his $1,000 went to Prezi. And I will say, the town council has been incredibly, and the committee that worked on this, incredibly transparent and open. And in fact, I saw one of those people yesterday. She came to our office hours, our BA office hours, and we had a conversation about it and their frustration because they didn't have any idea that this could happen. And they're now working on some sort of blanket remedy, not just for the couple people who have come up, but for everyone, because this is going to be a lot of people. And then that's a lot of money. And again, I mean, it's just nuts to me. When does the grift end? Where is the end of the grift?
Doesn't,
It's like the
Shauna.
endless
It doesn't.
grift.
It doesn't. And that's the problem. Until we actually account for it and hold our leaders accountable, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
It just doesn't. Forgive me, I have a torn cuticle over here, like picking at my poor little
Well,
cuticle.
I know you
So I
got.
will
I know you
say,
got to get going. I know you got to get going.
well, I'm gonna say we do have a couple things. We're not quite gonna wrap it up yet because I know we both do have to get going, but I do want to wrap up a
Yeah.
few. And we knew we were gonna run long today because we're gonna do one episode versus two. Because
Yeah.
Steve and I both have some things going on. But I do want to cover a last few things. Like as we wrap up this topic, I just want to say it came up around, there's been a lot of great conversation around the Met Gala, right? That as I saw someone refer to it as the Met Bayal, which cracked me up. I was like, that was perfect. But, and through that, it was like the inherent colonialism of the charity model. And without going too far deep into that, and maybe we'll cover it on another episode. I just loved that, and you can go down like a big thought, a hole of thought. But it is so true. It's like let a group of people steal the assets, literally steal in many cases from other countries and individuals, and put them in museums and put them in funds, and then profit and take all the money from everybody else, and then bestow again to you like, oh, let us do something so nice and give you some money back that we've stolen. And it is true, it really is like this. And when you think about it like this, it's like,
Shauna.
I
Oh.
agree. You can say, oh, Shawna, but I completely agree with this. I think that it is,
Well, the
it is inherently
foundations,
problematic, because
but the
if there
biggest
is enough
foundations
there is
are
enough money in
control.
this country for everyone. There is enough money in this country to do everything that we need to do to take care of everyone. That's it. But we choose not to
Mhm.
do that. We choose to allow what we have allowed, and for all this money to continue to flow up to the top. And, I saw another great line that I love. It was like, money's like manure. It's great when you spread it around, but when it piles up, it stinks. And that could not be truer.
Shauna, Marx, folks.
Yeah.
Das Kapital.
Uh, Listen, I'm not a Marxist, but there are, just as, I'm not a lot of things, but there are elements of value in all sorts of things. And if you want to be well read, I think it is wise to be aware of them all, right?
I'm very well read. I've read all of it.
I know you are. You're probably one of the most well read people I know. That's very true. So let's wrap this up with a quickie, because there are a few other big issues that I don't think we can wrap this episode without covering. Um, we're seeing a big showdown of the county versus the community on a number of issues, like as all of these things come to a head, and we're going to have to kind of cover them quickly. But the one thing we covered on our last episode was the fact that there were 3 projects coming up for discussion and input before the county signed them off. And one is this Jim's car wash project, where the former gyms at Lincoln and Altadena slated
Yep.
to be this like really so right. The issue of the Joe's Mobile that is doing an upgrade with a convenience store and also a car wash, and then also the topic of RV and temporary housing. And the affordable housing unit. It was really interesting to see that the county, the community was very clearly, like, they had an overall, like, significant number of community responses to the surveys, which we don't always see, but people really had opinions on this and spoke out overwhelmingly against the gyms project. Not on here is also the storage facility that is slated for the building where the Eat and Fire Collaborative is currently, or Collaboratory as it's called now, is currently located on Woodbury near the One Stop. That EFC building is slated to become a multi-unit storage facility. And people have been really quick to point out that none of this meets the West San Gabriel Valley plan that everyone was brought into and told by the county was, going to be, the template for how to do things. As we've pointed out repeatedly, we still have no economic development plan because, surprised they don't want us to have one. The community was overwhelmingly aligned on all of these issues. And the county, it looks like, is still wanting to kind of push things through and just do their own thing. And this is going to be the real test, because I think this is to where we started this episode with the town council. This is the shit or get off the pot moment, where the town council is going to have to really write a hard line and say, hey, we're standing up. The community does not want this.
Well,
Or,
but Shawna, they have to play it bigger than that. They have to play,
yep,
if we have the leverage to stop the federal money from coming in, then you need to stop doing your bullshit. I mean, it's that
correct.
simple.
It
And
is
they
that
have to
simple.
make it so we are creating alternate options to what the county is proposing through the town council, such as economic development, small business support,
Correct.
you know, financing mechanisms that do not rely on CDBG, and
Yep.
force the county to have to play ball or get out of the way. And
Yep.
unless they're willing to play hardball, which I doubt they are, this is a different game. And you're swimming in the shark pool with the biggest shark of
Yep.
all, Catherine Barger, who's been doing this for
A
35, 40
long
years.
time.
She knows it better than
And is a
anybody.
pro. That woman is a
I,
pro.
it doesn't mean that she can't be brought to bear, and
Yep.
it doesn't mean that she's not sensitive to the political environment, but it means that the town council is going to have to play a little bit more rough than I think they're used to.
Yep.
And again, the leadership up to this point has been focused on just healing the
Getting
community and
along.
bringing the community. Now it's a question of, okay, guess what? The county has not had our best interests at heart, and so, because of that, it's time to start having discussions about how we can take things into our own hands. We gave you CRD, you pooped on us. We gave you the opportunity to get the CDBG money, you pooped on us. We gave you the opportunity to set zoning. You're putting SB9 everywhere where the Palisades got exempted, and BS about the fire thing. If Barger wanted to ask the governor for that, she could have gotten it. The
Yep.
reality is we
Well, we're talk
trusted that
briefly about
things were
that
going to be
too.
taken care of. I know, but the
Yep.
point is we trusted these things were going to be taken care of. That that the county is going to do the proper assessments on properties and make sure that people are rebuilding properly. They're not doing shit, and we all
Nope.
know that. And
Yep.
that's going to be a whole other thing. And so we're at a point now where the county has failed us again and again and again. And they can take all the credit they want for all the lot line to lot line houses that are going up throughout Altadena, but that's because they want to increase the parcel tax. and people don't even know that they're about to have their parcel tax increase at a level that's going to be extraordinary over where they are now. And
Yep. So you
you know,
you kind of you're jumping you've jumped topics a little bit, Steve, but it is all
sorry.
right. We're gonna no, don't be sorry. We're gonna bring it all together because we have, like I said, this overwhelming community response and alignment to these projects and what happens in this community and not wanting these things. We have we had a Colorado Boulevard story that was talking about, again, and I'll link that for everybody. But really, that was getting into the fact that, again, with this money, where's all this money going? Where's the accountability for the money? And, also, where's the accountability with the county, which kind of ties everything we're talking about in this episode together. The other big issue that came up this week, and like I said, everything really is coming to a head right now. We are in a pressure cooker. Elliott. So for anyone who doesn't know, Elliott Middle School on North Lake, I always say across from Dr. Vanderhoof's office, but what is that, Lake in Calaveras?
Yeah.
Yeah. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm always getting my street names
No,
wrong,
it
even
is
though I've been here
Calaveras.
forever. Great.
It is Calaveras.
And anyone who recognize it with the big tower, right? It's got that big, beautiful tower. So there's been a lot of time spent since the fire on trying to figure out how, because it's such a historic structure, how to salvage it, how to rebuild it, how to keep it, some of it, the integrity of that tower, even if it's not that exact tower, as you rebuild something. And PUSD came out and said, hey, no time, no money, not happening. We're not saving it. We're not rebuilding the school. The whole thing's coming down. And what do you think's going to go there? Oh, should we bet money now?
Here's the thing that should go
Affordable
there.
housing?
Here's the thing that should go there. A park.
Yeah, it
We
should be
need more
something like
green
this. But
space.
with the
We need more
tower,
green
a park
space.
with the tower. So, this is
Again, the
again,
tower, but if we're going to get rid of
community.
it, give us a park.
Yep, community's
Give us
outraged
sports
about that,
fields.
understandably. Altadena Heritage has a petition going, and that's one of two petitions going. We're going to talk about also the petition thing briefly, but you've got also the SB9 woes. Again, I've had so many people calling me in the last few weeks of and reaching out to me wanting to talk about SB9. Like, how did this happen? And we're contacting the governor because it's the governor's doing this to us. And that's like, no, that's not really what's happening. Let's go back and
We didn't ask for the exemption.
ask for the exemption. Exactly. And the
Which
attitude is
again,
like, oh
this
no,
whole
we
idea
can't.
that we have to get exempted from everything that's bad is ridiculous. That people don't
It
want.
is.
Yet we need exemptions from this,
Yep.
exemptions from that. Give Hollywood tax credits. Again, I understand why, but maybe the tax burden overall is too much. And why should small business owners be subsidizing multinational corporations? Like
Right. And the
this
middle
whole
class and the shrinking middle
this is
class and working
this is
class.
this is all a microcosm of all the problems that we have here in California right now.
Yep. It is. So you've got that, and so people are really kind of waking up to like, oh my gosh, SB9 really bad. Like, this is happening next door to me. This is happening
No,
on
no,
my
no,
street. This is
Shawna,
happening
it's okay.
everywhere.
We're gonna have everyone's gonna have Kato Kalin in their backyard. I mean, I heard that conversation
You
that
can't, it's okay.
we
You
can
won't be able
we
to
can address
park. You won't
the
have
housing
water.
issue.
You won't have water because we have no infrastructure for this increased density. You won't be able to traverse your street because some of this shit's going up on streets that are already barely one lane when there are cars parked. And there's no parking because there's no parking requirements for any of this. That's part of what SB9 did. No parking requirements. So it's now that people are seeing how
And
not
everyone's
only
gonna
out
be
of
a
character, but
landlord,
how, yes,
and then they're gonna all
well,
find out
and
what
they're
it's like
not,
to be a
but they're
landlord
not.
in Southern California.
But they're not. And that is the other fallacy. We have been fed this line that that SB9 and this density and this increase of ADUs is going to support, some of the families that have lost generational wealth, their ability to recoup that. Except that is like, it may as well be more trickle down economics. It's not happening. Those are not the people who are doing this. It is developers. It's new property owners. As these properties flip, it is not that. So the community is starting to get to really kind of wake up to this reality. They're not happy. There's a petition going around specifically around a project on Punahou. And that thing, it's a 5,000 square foot lot that is going to have 3 condo-like units on it. It's insane, but that is what's happening on every street. So people are really riled up about this, but I'm like, it is literally on every street, guys. This isn't just one street, it's everywhere. So what are we doing about it? And now everyone's waking up and they're freaking out. So I want to say a note about petitions quickly, because there's a petition from Altadena Heritage. There's a community about Elliott. There's a community petition around this project on Punahou and SB9. But the bigger pieces, aside from the fact that the Altadena Heritage petition is missing one of the biggest things of concern, in my opinion, and hearing this from people in our group, that like all of our commercial areas should have been cleared before anyone came back in the community. But because they were not included and we didn't get that complete cleanup, it didn't happen. And now you're talking about massive, massive demo of a historic, massive campus that's full of fire toxicity and asbestos around standing homes that people just spent a year and their own money, because insurance wouldn't pay, to remediate and get back in their homes. And now we're going to recontaminate them. No big deal. Nothing to see here. So that aside, I really want to talk about the petition thing quickly, as fast as I can for people. Petitions make us feel good because we took 10 seconds online and we did something, but they do nothing. They are wildly ineffective. They are a good tool to bring awareness to an issue, but they are not a tool to actually do anything actionable around an issue. But what does work truly is reaching out directly to your electeds when you are a constituent, blowing up their phones, blowing up their emails. If you even look at these petitions, let alone take the time to sign a petition, you must, I implore you, I beg you, you have to call and write all of your electeds. It's Barger's office, it's Judy Chu, it's Sasha Perez, it's John Harabedian, and in some cases, SB9, it's Newsom's office. You
It's
have
called
to
bringing
do
the
this.
noise. It's called
Correct.
bringing
You
the
have
noise.
to do it. It works. If they heard from literally 1/5 of the people who sign these petitions directly, this shit would change and get shut down. But nobody does that. They don't take the direct action. So, folks, you've got to mobilize. You have to do that. Please, tell your friends and neighbors, take a minute and do it. If they actually hear from us in phone calls, hear from us in emails. I'm actually working on a big thing to put out on Substack to help guide people through doing this. So it's a copy and paste of a note and copy and paste of an email, or, a quick phone number at your fingertips. This is how we actually change something. I mean, this is also playing out around the SCE undergrounding. And again, no plan, no cohesive anything. It's playing out really badly for the neighbors on Alzada, who are up, for anyone who doesn't know, that's north of Loma Alta off Cheney Trail. I actually almost bought a place on Alzada years ago myself, and I was afraid of the fire. I was afraid of the fire risk of that high. Oh, the irony. But, their undergrounding plan is terrible, and it puts vaults. It puts those massive vaults in front of people's properties every few feet. It's insane. And for anyone who doesn't know, like those things, that's a choice. That's a financial choice. If they want to spend the money, you could have those things undergrounded too. It's what they do in a lot of communities. Pasadena, look at Claremont. Like it's all around us where that's done. They don't have to be in front of just people's homes. So, this is the moment. This is the moment where there are opportunities for our community to rally together and stand up for itself and for one another, and put an end to some of this, or at least make a stand, and for the town council to do the same. This is
Well,
the
look,
moment.
I,
It's
I
not going to
think
get better.
I think the answer to, and again, as much as that's the case, and Shauna, you're right. This is where you're great. Fight the man. Go for it. I'm with you. But I
It's
think
not like
for
fight the
our
man. It's just we can't lay
no, but
down and
you
expect
have to
it
stand up.
just
But it's a
happen.
dual, but it has to be done dually. Like this
Yeah.
is the point. You're good at that side of it, but the town council's also going to have to play hardball,
Man
and
up.
they're going to have to show up with Washington, letting them understand that they're not in alignment with what's happening here. That like the Palisades has done, that there are multiple voices here, and if those voices are not singing out the same hymnal, and we're willing to give Washington what they want, where the county can't, because District 1 and District 2 want to take all of our money and create an economic crisis down there. We need to be able to bypass this stuff. And we're being held up because of politics, not because of capability. And there are ways that the town council can utilize its position as leverage either over the county or actually get us what we want. And
Yeah.
that is a path toward potentially what you've talked about many times, which is incorporation. We've reached a point where our interests aren't being looked out for. And this is a 40,000 person town. and it's being used as a, you want to talk about colonization? This is a
Yep.
colonization. I mean, we are literally being used as a as an afterthought to just enrich those folks down in downtown at the county hall of administration. And we're not getting our true seat at the table. And that is the purpose of having an advisory council like the town council. And if they're not going to be listened to, then they can go advise someone else. And I know there's
Yep.
people in Washington that would listen to them.
Yep.
And by the way,
That's the truth.
I know a guy who can help you there.
Yeah. We know a guy.
Yeah,
It's
trust me.
true. I know. I know. I mean,
Boy,
there's so much more to
can you
talk about
imagine
this
them
week.
in the Oval? That would be pretty funny.
Oh
Oh,
man. On that note, let's go into our small biz bit because I know sadly I'm gonna run out the door here in a
RIP.
minute.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. So Steve was very adamant that he wanted to handle the small biz roundup today because it's time for him to deliver his ode to the dive bar.
No, I was in Bar Betsy the other day getting lunch for my wife and I, and we were just talking about how we don't have a dive bar, and we were talking about the Rancho, and how a lot of us have
Yeah.
very fond memories of the Rancho. I'm sure
Yep.
everybody's got a Rancho story that has lived in Altadena for longer than a year or two. And usually, it probably involved a night that you probably shouldn't have gone there, but you end up there anyway.
Or a morning because that Bloody Mary was so good.
So, and just it's more a request to whomever comes in here, and if we ever get an economic development plan, that give us another rancho, like give us something like that where I know that the Eagles Hall has become sort of the filler for that, but at the end of the day, it was something that it helped identify, it really encapsulated what Altadena was, right? The idea of everybody came together at the Rancho, and it really was that moment where all the different parts of the town kind of crossed and mixed. And everybody, if you said the word Rancho, everybody had a smile on their face and they
Yep.
knew what you were talking about. And I think if there's anything that we can keep from Altadena from what was as we move to the transition, it's that type of whatever it's going to be, whether they rebuild the rancho or not, or whether we do something else. I put it out there for all the great restaurateurs and entrepreneurs in this community. Please give us another rancho.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Rancho itself wants to come back. There's a GoFundMe. We've talked
I've
about it
heard,
before.
I've heard that there's questions as to whether it will be come back or not.
I know. I know. I've heard that too. I hope that they can. I mean, it's just so hard. And also, how do you recreate a dive bar? It's the age, it's the patina, it's the funk in the carpet. You know what I mean? It's the
I
sticky
know, but
stools.
there are
Like,
things you can do. Like, look, there are things that can be done, right? You don't have to create the
yeah,
exact dive bar, but just
I
something
know.
with that flavor. You don't have
Yeah.
just something to give us for the next generation that runs through Altadena, a place that's a communal gathering place in some respects. I tried to get the Altadena Town and Country Club to do it. I wanted them to put up a trailer that we can turn into a dive bar because of their liquor permit, and put up some Christmas lights and just be able to let the community go there and just kind of stumble home. But you know no shot. Yeah, but they don't get permission from us to do what they want to do. So yeah, and go by and see my boy uh, Malcolm Marable in his Just Too Nice if you need some good athletic clothes. Everybody, my kids swear by it. Who needs gluten-free pizza? Whole purpose of it is bread. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm just bugging you. I'm just bugging you. I'm just bugging you. Ah, where's next week going to be? Are you going to get this posted before then? Okay. Oh, all right. Thank you, Shauna. All right. You doing your sign off? You're always good at that. All right. I don't know. Don't we tell them like you can go to all your things and I go to all my things and the Alta Policy Wonk and I'm just on Substack. I don't do all the other stuff. Yeah, and until next time. Bye all.